out there. You could do a lot in that backyard.
If you love winter sports, New
Yeah.
Jersey is a good place for that.
Yeah,
New
and you're
York, New
not getting
Jersey, yeah.
the shitty snow is that snow that's on the street that turns black and it's full of like dog piss. But in your backyard,
No.
it's just beautiful, white, fluffy,
Oh
you know,
yeah, it was crazy fluffy today. You could have built a nice
crazy.
snowman. Yeah,
Dude, I
absolutely.
shoveled for a good 35 minutes. Like I broke my back.
35 minutes.
No, I did. It was brack baking work.
Brag breaking. Brag.
And people were making 1% on Nvidia while I was fucking killing myself out there.
shoveling snow.
I was shoveling too. Being sick, I was still shoveling. Yeah.
Dude, I want to get so rich, I never have to worry about shit like this. Like shoveling, I shouldn't have to worry about that.
No, you know what? I pay somebody to shovel, and they never finish the fucking job. I don't understand.
Dude comes by with a 4x4 with a plow on the front,
No, there's a
We
guy that
have a
comes
plow,
out.
but we just didn't use it.
right?
You know, he leaves the cars all covered. He leaves the path not perfect. So I'm like, all right. He did 95% of the work, so that's good.
Oh, you can get it in.
The real reason I broke my back
It was on a mountain.
is because Vlad was blowing my back out. You know what I'm talking about today? That's up 10%.
Well, I just want to point out the
Oh.
reason you're cold is because your calls haven't printed yet. You can't turn on the heat.
Basically. Okay, before we talk about anything, let's do the SoFi NBA news real quick. What do you think about that? SoFi is the official bank of the NBA. What do you think?
I think
Good or
it's.
bad?
I mean, look, it's nice they're getting their name out, so that is important. I'm not going to argue. At this point, the guy is executing. He knows what he's doing. So, I would have said originally maybe he shouldn't be doing that, like the stadium and all that. But hey, it seems to be working. They're getting more members. They're beating their numbers. So if this continues, I'm not going to second guess Noto.
Yeah, it's like
Carlos,
I don't know.
think
I
it's
kind of
worth
feel like it could. I hope
Say
it
it
doesn't
again?
go the
What'd you
way.
say?
I was just asking Carlos, do you think it's worth it? Do you think that they obviously bid more than like Bank of America or whatever? So do you think?
I think it's a smart move. Like, why wouldn't you? Why would you cede that ground to somebody else if it's just a matter of bidding higher, right? But it's almost like the crypto.com arena. Remember, like last year, all the commercials about crypto and then crypto shit the bed. There's like a joke about that whenever they change the name of a stadium or something. So
There is a crypto arena. I forgot where is that? What state
out
is that
here,
in?
it used to be the T-Mobile Arena. Oh no, it was the Staples Center. Then I think it was the T-Mobile Arena.
Is it in California? I'm like,
Yeah,
that is the
it's
dumbest
close
name
by.
for an
No,
arena.
now it's
Crypto
called
arena.
crypto.com.
Crypto.com arena.
Yeah, and it's weird.
So stupid.
It's weird. But crypto had a big boom. All the Super Bowl commercials last year were about crypto, and now then it shit the bed. Now it's
Honestly, I did see the Super Bowl this year. I don't know if you guys watched it. I usually don't watch it, but we were watching it, and I did not see crypto commercials. Were there any crypto commercials?
On the
Nope.
Super Bowl? No, I don't
Well,
remember.
the reason I say this is because next year there's probably going to be, and that's the top. Okay,
Yeah,
so
there you go.
that-
right. If
now we are
Tesla
not
has
at the
a
top.
commercial that talks about like Bitcoin mining, sell both of them.
Right. Clean Spark. Invest in Clean Spark.
yeah,
That's where you
That's the
you,
one.
you better be selling out of Clean Spark.
Right.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
So overall, I think they definitely overpaid for this NBA thing, but yeah,
How much did they pay? What did they pay?
I don't know.
I think they overpaid. How much? I don't know.
I'm looking now. It doesn't
Well, I
say.
mean, there's no details, but like, dude, it's an NBA partnership. Like, NBA is not
Well, of
cheap.
course they
dude.
overpaid. Yeah.
NBA is the NBA.
Well, the question is, is the value there? Like, how much did they pay for the stadium? It seems like they're getting some good value out of.
Well, no,
the
but here's my
customers'
question
money.
to you: do you think the NBA saying the name SoFi official banking partner would make you more likely to sign up for SoFi?
It's not about saying, oh, the NBA is validating it. It's just being made aware of it. You're like, I'm just going to go check that out.
Look, if you don't know something exists, I'm sorry to go against Elon. If you don't pay attention to something, like any advert piece of it, like if I'm not looking at this sort of TV, like Hisense, would I know Hisense? I would just buy a Sony, right? Like, oh, you would buy a Sony or a Samsung, the name you know. That's why these people advertise. SoFi needs to advertise to get people to know who the F SoFi is. And they're smaller, so I think they have to advertise more, not less. I think that's the way you get your name out. Forget about people signing up. That's just the way to get your name out so people even recognize you.
The one time that I was at the SoFi Stadium was relatively new. It was relatively new, had just opened. And I did hear people in line in the concession stand being like, what's that SoFi thing? The logo. You're standing there in line. You're a captive audience. They can have other ads in there. And I did see,
Right.
I think there was like a 2D barcode where you could just scan it and it would like take you to the app to get more information. But I saw more than one person saying that. And this was, in a stadium was like 30, I don't know how many thousands of people.
But I feel if they wash over you, if like even Coca-Cola, right? Why does Coca-Cola still advertise? because they want the name to stay in your head no matter what. Even if you're not drinking a Coke, they want that there. So I think SoFi is doing the right thing for continuing to advertise. However they do it, obviously they have some metrics on this. I don't know if they share that, right? Do they share the metrics on what works, what converts?
No, but but they guided for GAAP profitability, so they had to know like whatever they're going to pay for this is going to still allow them to be profitable.
Right.
I'm just curious if like the NBA games are really going to make people want to sign up. But I mean, if you hear it every single time,
once again, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
It's about getting that touch point. Like they have metrics. For example, one of the things, if they follow you around the whole internet, they know how many times they've shown you, like YouTube, for example, they know what that click-through rate is, and they know how many times they've had to show AMIT this thumbnail before he clicks on it.
Yeah.
And then once they click on it, then it goes into a different set of metrics. But it's the same sort of deal. They know all the touch points that they have with specific customers till they get them. That's part of what goes into the customer acquisition cost. They're determining what the number is.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, the overall picture. So not that there's a direct conversion, that the next time you see SoFi, you're like, oh, I know these guys, you know?
Right.
All right. Cirrus at 608, one of the most beautiful stadiums, in the world. I agree. I was surprised. Again, it's brand new, but man, it's just a gorgeous stadium the way it's laid out.
Having said that, SoFi is never going over 10. Just want to point that out.
Dude, it's been pretty annoying for a lot of people, you know. But they'll have their day eventually.
I think when the thing is, when things base this long, I think when it goes up, it's going to go up pretty high.
Yeah.
And I think people will not catch it. They will think it's another run to 10 and end up dumping. It's one of those things, if Nodal keeps executing, at some point it's going to hit escape velocity.
What do you what price target would you give it end of the year? December 31st?
12.
I think if 12. It escapes a certain number, I'm not sure if it's 12. I haven't looked at the chart, but I would feel it goes straight to $20. No joke.
That would be a $20 billion company, though.
Listen, when things run, okay, you've seen what happens, all right? How much is Palantir again right now?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, 50, 75, especially that's why you're buying them at such low market caps, because you expect that kind of a multiple.
Well, I mean, like, it's always amazing to me. Like, we've noticed enough of these. Everyone's calling them bubbles. They're not bubbles, but when NVIDIA runs, everyone's like, "Oh, is this going to end today?" It takes years for these bubbles, quote unquote, to end. Tesla, how it ran for years. And now we're basing again, and everybody's all depressed, of course, including me. But remember, we ran from 40 billion to $1 trillion. Who would have thought that would have happened? Like,
that's true.
That is not something you would have thought would happen.
Isn't right until you look back at it, where you go, that really did just happen because of the splits, and you go, S&P inclusion. Like, we've been through this.
Enphase ran from, I think, $1 billion to 60 billion. Like, it was a crazy run if you look back at the history of it. Like, so these runs happen over years, and they don't stop if the company is executing, even if it's completely overvalued, quote unquote. So I think if SoFi keeps hitting its numbers, and we're talking about a year or two later, I wouldn't be shocked if it ran straight to $20. Just wouldn't be shocked.
Well, this year, I was thinking 12. I'm thinking 12. I was on with TJ this morning. He bought 30,000 shares of SoFi.
$8.
No, he's a gambler.
He's a baller, dude. He's a baller.
Hookering those things out. He is selling calls, selling. So we were talking about that, and he was trying to get a guess for what his portfolio would be worth by the end of the year. We're like, okay, what do you think these shares are going to do? I was like, I don't know, $12. You know,
I just want to point out that I've been quiet. I've not been on, but I've been watching everybody, and all of you are motherfucking gamblers. That's all I've noticed. There are so many gamblers. It is crazy because nobody's investing anymore. You're just buying calls. There's no more actual stock buying and investing in companies for the next 5-10 years. Forget about that. Nobody's even talking about that. It's all about.
Yeah, but that's not interesting content, dude. That's boring.
It's all about, can I time this? Can I time this dip?
Yeah.
Can I buy that one? Can I?
Exciting.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Honestly,
it's fun, dude. It's like, I get what you're saying. It's just not. There's nothing to talk about when you buy a stock and you hold it forever. Then you just,
Well, that's the beauty of me not being a real YouTuber. So. I can, point out the fact that everybody's a gambler. I'm not saying I haven't gambled on calls too, but I still look at my portfolio. It's mostly in stock. It is not mostly in options. So
okay, so let's. I don't know where KRIS is. Maybe he'll be here in a second. But Bitcoin, Vitaly, you've been gone for a bit. Vitaly's been sick, so he's feeling better today. That's why he's here. You've been seeing Bitcoin run to 50,000. Yeah. What are you and CleanSpark at 16? What are your thoughts on what's happened?
So I'm actually not surprised, because now, as soon as Bitcoin hit, I think we talked about a long time ago, if it's over the 10, I think a 10-week MA, it's sort of in a bullish trend. So we are in a bull market for Bitcoin, which means that, and as soon as I recognized that, I don't know if I told you guys, I'm sure I posted it, but I started DCAing into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also Cardano too, Carlos.
Me too.
Basically daily for the last couple of months now, and buying on any dips that happen. So I was heavily accumulating more Ethereum and Ethereum contract. I'm sorry, and ETH, which is the grayscale Ethereum trust. So, and I have Bitcoin, of course, but I'm not buying as heavy because I think it's getting to the point. Even if I get a 3x out of Bitcoin, it's not the same as like Ethereum, which I feel Ethereum is 4 or 5x still minimum. So now I'm just going heavier into Ethereum. So this is important to know, but that basically Ethereum, I'm sorry, Bitcoin is in a bull market. Like any pullbacks are to be bought, even if it's a 50% cut. So from 50K to 25K, totally possible for Bitcoin. Even if that happens, it doesn't matter. I think we are heading to massive all-time highs, which means Ethereum probably goes over the 10K mark or very close to it, if not over. So
I'm feeling the same.
and this is why I've been buying so heavy. And I have a lot of Ethereum. The thing is, I don't care. I want more Ethereum because even at 2,700, my assumption is around 10,000. So it's still 3.5x or something like that. So I think crypto is not to be ignored. And anyone who's ignoring it, and some people have been responding on Twitter saying, "Oh, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to dump." To buy any,
but these dips are like, I want to wait to drop $3,000 or $2,000.
No, I'm like, you just have to DCA at this point.
About
Yeah, DCA Bitcoin, DCA Ethereum. I'm not telling you to go buy other junk like Cardano. That's my spec bet, so I'm just buying a little bit of that. But just you got to DCA that kind of stuff. Even if you don't believe in the narrative of crypto taking over, like, which I don't really care about that narrative. I've told you. Even if you don't believe it, at the end of the day, it's obvious what's happening here. Bitcoin is a real thing. It's a real asset. It's now been regulated. Okay. Crypto space is going to be regulated. Exchanges like Coinbase have nowhere to go but up as well. And these miners as well, because as Bitcoin increases in value and they're holding Bitcoin on their books, that means the underlying assets they're holding are increasing in value. It just shows you what's happening. You have to understand pretty simple fundamentals, what's going on. So I don't think this is difficult anymore.
What about too when the other countries approve ETFs of their own?
I think a lot already have them, by the way. United States is one of the last ones.
Like Korea, Japan, they're in the same process that we were. But I mean, assuming that they're approved out here, you can imagine that they're going to be approved out there. And now you've got basically global corporations all vying for this one asset, which there's only 1 million left. And we're about to get.
Yeah, and if you ignored gold and at 1970s or whatever, you would have missed quite a massive run when gold had its ETF moment and it was traded on the exchanges. So you would have missed your 10x. So there you go. If you're willing to do that, go ahead. You can miss it. I'm not willing to miss this. No way.
All right, let's talk about inflation, and we'll talk about Robinhood as well. But this was the big news of the day. CPI 3.1, market wanted 2.9. Core came in at 3.9, market wanted 3.7. March rate cuts have gone down to a 2% possibility from 77 a week ago. It lets you know how humbling the markets can be when they change their mind. Chris, S&P was down 2% today. What do you think's going on with inflation?
I mean, there's a lot of lag in the inflation data, but more importantly, there has to be some work on the federal spending side as well. I mean, the next 100 basis points is not going to be as easy as people think. Like what we got right now was a lot of credit tightening, which definitely helped. But at the same time, the government spending is just out of control. So I think right now the government needs to kind of, take a little bit of a breather, man. If you look at the outlays for the US government on how much spending that they've done post-COVID, they've gone up $2 trillion. Now, here's the thing. I could understand 2020 and even 2021 to a degree when it comes to the spending, to get us over the COVID hump. But dude, we're no longer fighting the war in Afghanistan. So defense spending should go down, right? Absent this whole thing with Ukraine and everyone just piling into that. But that should start coming down somewhat. And then at the same time, a lot of the COVID era spending that was happening to support businesses and stuff, that should be coming down too. So I don't understand how the outlays have grown so much and they're not going down. You know, like they need to start cutting down and getting to the point where we're back not to the levels that we had in 2019, and you know, but at least somewhat, like maybe take $1 trillion off the top. You know, and the problem is our system of government. There's no one brave enough to be there to say, you know what, we both need to raise taxes and cut spending. Like, you want to control inflation, you want to get it below 2%. That's the solution at this point. Jerome Powell can't fix it. Jerome Powell can keep rates high, keep people from spending money. But then what ends up happening is the minute you start cutting back on interest rates, people are just going to go out and spend again, right? So at this point, you need the federal government to kind of step in a little bit and say, you know what, we're not going to keep spending money recklessly. We're going to start cutting back a little bit, take some money out of the economy, so that this way inflation can get back to somewhat normalcy. So, you know, and that's why I put that Milton Friedman that video. Do you want to show that real quick? Because I think that's very important that everyone should know.
So there's no incentive. There's no incentive to do what you're saying by both parties in charge.
Let's play 30 seconds, and then we'll get to the VITALY stocks. 30 seconds, then we'll get VITALY.
Yeah. Because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Inflation is made in one.
No, what's funny is right now the narrative that's coming out of the White House is, well, it's not us, it's the corporations. They're price gouging you guys. That's the problem. And I think what that's doing is that's just a deflection. No. If corporations are price gouging, you know what the consumer does? They don't buy the shit that you're selling. That's it. And problem solved. So if someone raises the prices to the point where consumers can't bear it, what happens? The market instantly corrects that and demand goes down, which means the producers have to decrease prices. The problem is the more money that the government keeps pushing out in terms of spending, that money ends up flowing to the consumer. And now you have consumers competing against each other with additional dollars, which means that the businesses can extract higher values. It's like basic economics 101, but you know, it is what it is.
So you don't think that companies are taking advantage of the shield, that protection of the word inflation, to raise prices beyond what the additional costs they've incurred?
I think some of them might be doing it, but it's nothing that's going to tilt the scale nearly as much as the federal government. You know, because if you think about it, there are going to be some commodities and some things out there that are not under their control. If you are buying a raw good or a service, if that goes up in price and value, you as a corporation are going to be able to make some of the differences up by raising prices. You know, and you have to do it. So right now, when the government says, like, there's this one senator, House member from California, she wants to raise minimum wage in California $50. $50.
I'm moving to California. Shit.
Now tell me, inflation.
Don't forget
YouTube to pay me $50 an hour. That'd be awesome.
Don't forget, but then California takes away 25 immediately. So.
I mean, this is the kind of yeah. Sorry,
FedEx. They pay them $170,000, and then they just announce a bunch of layoffs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they're like hiring, I don't know, a good percentage of the people. They're like, all right, you want to raise wage? I hear what you're saying, right? I mean, and I don't agree with a $50 minimum wage, but I've definitely seen evidence of companies taking advantage of it and just charging artificially higher prices just because they can. And it's essentially them looking for that buoy point. What is the point where the consumer will no longer tolerate it? When does it actually affect our sales?
From my understanding, this is what's happening. Corporations had to raise prices when their input costs started to go up, especially when it came to raw materials and goods, right? So you had the price of X go up. So now everyone got used to paying that price. There is no incentive for that business to start lowering prices and saying, you know what, let's discount. Instead, now that their input costs have gone down, they're just keeping the same price. I mean, remember the thing we spoke about with Wingstop? Remember that the price of broiler chickens was astronomical. Yeah. So what did Wingstop do? They raised prices. Now the price of broiler chickens is
Can we bring up a chart, a 10-year chart of the price of broiler chickens?
Yeah. Now the price has gone back down. But do you think Wingstop is starting
taking
to
it
like
seriously, looking up?
I'm trying to find the
Yeah.
futures for
No,
Burger King.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying even in addition to that, there is a bit of a squeeze happening. Okay, the one thing that Biden spoke about on the Super Bowl was shrinkflation, where you notice that like the pint of ice cream is a little bit smaller, the soda bottles are smaller, but they're charging you the same amount. I've seen it. I mean, we see this
Yeah.
out here.
Prices.
Well,
That-
Biden said in the Super Bowl, he showed a pack of Oreos, some ice cream, and Gatorade or whatever, and he said the companies are making it smaller, the shrinking, as you're saying, but they're charging you more. So, Chris, what is your argument to that? Because that's what Biden is saying is the issue in America right now.
I mean, look, I think corporations to some degree will try to use pricing power to gain a little bit of leverage. But you have to remember, there's a lot of other input costs that these corporations are facing that they're going to have to create some sort of value there to not freak people out from buying, right? So as an example, labor costs have gone up way more recently. So tell me, how is
you guys like crazy for this podcast? You guys are running.
How is Nabisco? How is Gatorade? How are these guys going to justify keeping the same size and same thing, same price and everything? You know, if you look at the profit margins for Pepsi, they haven't gone up significantly in the last 4 years. Otherwise, you would see it in their earnings, right? Look at Pepsi's earnings. Tell me if their margins have gone way out of spec. Have they?
But this is to your point of saying if okay, government spending should go back down to normal levels because we're basically out of the pandemic, right? So we're out of the pandemic, so all of the reasons to need to spend more are gone. We should go back down to maybe not pre, but at least shave a couple trillion off. This is the exact same argument that I'm making with prices.
What do you mean? So you think that the corporation should lower the prices?
Prices,
well, that's the thing. They're going to
come down, especially because look, we just added $50 billion the fourth quarter of 2023 of consumer debt. It's at 1.something trillion. So
right.
People, even if they can't afford it, they're using credit cards to supplement the income that they're not making. At a certain point, they run out of credit, and now that consumer, is fucked.
Yeah, but that's what the market does. That's how the market corrects. Right now, if people are if you have shrinkflation and if you have the price of going up, people cannot buy that product. If they see the price of Oreos or the pint of ice cream going up and it's going down, they can just say, you know what? Instead of buying this ice cream, I'll go to another brand. Right? That is how it gets fixed.
People only seem to justify that for gas. They expect gas to go up and down, and they don't expect their fucking Oreos to be cheaper.
Yeah, I think that this is
the same number of Pringles in the fucking can.
Well, no, it's a simplistic view. If a product goes up like Oreos, after inflation, let's say right now, then that's the price. Why would it go down? That doesn't work that way. It's not a commodity like gas, which would fluctuate. Oreos are not a commodity.
Milk is
anything that's not a commodity.
Milk and eggs are a commodity.
Maybe you could say that, but I think produce
meats are pretty expensive. In other words, that they're not. And
by the way, eggs have started to come back down, so maybe you're right about eggs being a commodity. But hold on, I'm saying like if you're buying a loaf of bread and you're paying 25 cents more, 50 cents more, whatever, I think the bread stays a little bit higher. I don't know if people care. I know you're saying they do, but when you go to the grocery store, yes, some people have coupons and they're looking at that, but
people do care.
If bread is 50%, hold on, if bread is 50 cents more or Oreos are 50 cents more, are you not buying the Oreos and the bread? Is this what I think you are? So
no,
I don't think it's something that stops you from buying Oreos and bread.
Actually,
it's different.
The mom buys the generic brand. That is,
it's different. Hold on, it's different for gas. See, gas is a little bit different because I need it in my car every single day, right? If you're driving obviously a gas car, you need to go get it every single day. And if electricity goes up, I see it because I'm plugging in every single day. So I think it's a little bit different than the Oreo example, something like that. But
I don't know what they're doing out on the East Coast, but out here we see it. We just went to the store. We picked up like 3 things for like $45. I was like,
what 3 things?
Yeah, I mean, dude, your cashiers are making what? How much? $22 an hour?
It was like nothing.
But
these are no, I don't know what they make.
You got to stop going to the sushi aisle. Okay.
Out here, those like self checkout machines are taking
Oreos.
You want to know what?
So many fewer employees working in these stores than they did even a few years ago now.
You want to know something that pisses me off? Like there is no tomorrow in Brooklyn, where I have my apartment. I have gone to some of these what is that they call the grocery stores, right?
What neighborhood?
Not like the supermarket in Williamsburg, right?
Okay.
I will see a lot of these Orthodox Jewish people. They just come and line up with all this stuff, and literally it's just a food stamp cart. Like literally everything is on the food stamp card.
Mhm.
And you go outside and they're driving a Mercedes. Like it's one of those things that's infuriating because there are a lot of people that know how to game the system and get the benefits, and I see that across the board,
Well,
So,
you're saying they game it because they're crying
oh,
poverty.
dude, they easy, bro. I know.
How do
the
you drive a
exact game.
Mercedes and get food stamps?
Well,
Is that
I-
possible?
Mercedes is
it-
honestly, it's not that expensive a month. I don't know what people are thinking.
Yeah.
It's not
I
that-
know the game. I know the game that
Oh, it's like-
that there is. All right. Everyone knows the game. No one talks about it. But one, they're unmarried, so they don't legally get married. They have like 6 or 7 kids, which means that now it's like a single mom with 6
Single
kids,
mom.
and they get all the benefits from that. The husband doesn't work a cash job. They own the property around Brooklyn, and they get the rent from that. So they keep it very separate. So they know how to do it. Like there's an entire town in New York State that is almost like on like almost everyone is on welfare. It's called this place called Curious Joel. Have you ever heard of that before?
Curious George? The monkey?
It's called Curious Joel. If you look it up, you'll be
I gotta
shocked.
see this.
You'll be shocked.
This is
You'll
the
be
whole
shocked.
town, EBT.
How do you spell
Yeah.
Joel?
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
curious. I thought it was curious, dude. I was like, what the fuck?
But okay, you brought up earlier. First of all, I think you've changed your thesis over the last couple of weeks. It seems like I thought we were talking about deflation being a big thing happening, and now you're like we have to control inflation. I think the problem that's going to happen
yeah.
is
Mhm.
deflation. That's actually going to occur. More. That's more of an issue. And I think you had a post. I'm not sure if you did today, but if they don't lower rates sooner than later. First of all, the debt, I forgot what the debt is being paid right now, is kind of crazy. The actual $1 trillion or something, I forget it. I think it's more than we pay for to protect ourselves, right? To the military at this point. So that's a bigger issue in terms of the deflation that's going to occur. I don't believe that we are in a problem with inflation at all. So whatever CPI numbers come out, this is not the worry. And you also mentioned, which I think you're correct, the longer that rates stay high, the worse it is for real estate. That could lead to a bad situation going forward. So if they keep rates high for much longer, a year or two, what happens to the commercial real estate sector, the residential real estate sector? I don't know. That's actually worse for them. So
let me ask you this question about commercial real estate. Patrick Bet-David was talking about this today. He went to a conference in Munich, and there was a billionaire there. And the guy said that in Germany, they don't have the commercial real estate problem because no one's fucking working from home. So like they have their inflation thing, they're dealing with it, but they're still able to have that asset class have value. His firm did an analysis that there's $3 trillion worth of commercial real estate in the United States. 1.2 trillion of that is paper losses, but it's kind of like The Big Short where it hasn't actually hit the books, but it's on paper. And his argument is once that hits the books, we are going to have a reckoning in this country and it's not going to be pretty. So my question to you guys is, do you think America can go back to the time where we like license commercial real estate and we can refinance all that and that's okay? Or is this actually going to be something that's going to be tough if we don't cut rates soon because the refinancing is going to be a lot for that interest?
So this is where you have to remember, take one thing. I'll nuance what I just said. Up until now, the Fed, they were able to get rates down using the pure power of credit creation and destruction. The last 100 basis points that they need to get us back to that 2% goal is going to be much, much harder. And that's what I'm saying. That can't happen unless the federal government aids and also at the same time doesn't cut back, has to cut back. Because if the Fed starts to lower interest rates and the federal government is still spending like crazy, all you're going to do is have another round of inflation, in which case now the federal government, I mean, in terms of inflation, it's just going to go back up again. You need to cut back on spending so that this way the Fed can successfully lower at the same time. Right now, we're in this position where if you don't do both, you're just going to get reacceleration in inflation again. You know.
Okay, so I mean,
I don't know if that's going to happen because when we printed in COVID, we doubled, right, the balance sheet basically. So they would have to do something similar. And I don't know if that's happening at that same rate. I think if it returns back to normal inflation printing, which is never going to end, that's the way a fiat system works. So I don't think it's as bad as you say. And I keep going back to America is the last man standing. They're allowed to do a lot of shit that other countries aren't allowed to do. So China's right now printing the hell out of to save their economy. The world hasn't collapsed. Europe has printed. The world hasn't collapsed. We're printing. The world. So as long as everybody agrees that this is the way it is, I don't think it's as bad as you say. And I still think deflation is the real issue that's coming up, not inflation.
Yeah, I agree that deflation is on its way. I am not against that. What I am saying is, if that is the key that we want, if we want price stability over the long term, we need to make sure that we're not inflating our spending again, and actually cutting back a little bit. And I guess this will
I don't know
be
why
the
you keep
test,
saying
right?
that.
What
This
do you
is
mean?
not the history of fiat money. There is no cutting back. Give me one time when they actually just cut back, and meaning
Post World
less.
War II. Post
Okay,
World
fine,
War II.
World War II. Okay.
World War II. No, World War II. We
Fine.
did a whole bunch of government spending, and guess what happened afterwards? We stopped spending
Were
like
we
drunken
on-
sailors.
Was it, what year did we go on the actual fiat money?
74, I think.
So I don't know if World War II is a good example. Just FYI.
I mean, that you said, going to give you an example. So that's
Okay,
the
thank you.
example.
Thank
We were
you.
able to cut back. We were able to cut back significantly on our national debt, right? One of the vulnerabilities that we have, even Jamie Dimon has said it outright. One of the biggest vulnerabilities that we have is our national debt. Right now we have the ability to issue tons of credit without too many issues with people still buying our credit. Eventually, that is going to stop. And that is what's going to bring us down. I mean, it happened to the Roman Republic. It'll happen to us. We cannot keep diluting ourselves, saying that, we're the best in the world. There's no other alternative, because all you're doing is leaving an opening for somebody else to come in.
I agree with KRIS and VITALY here, because I get VITALY's point, which is that the U.S. is the U.S. and China's economy is absolute shit. So like we're doing much better than them. But at some point, dude, this is at what, 35 trillion? It's going to get to 50 trillion in like another decade.
I honestly remember when it was 1 trillion. I remember being.
I know you guys are talking numbers, and these are big numbers, but
This is a really
if
big
the
number.
if the value of the dollar is worth less, right? Then it just doesn't matter. Like it could be 100 trillion. If everybody agrees that this is the denomination we're working in, and everyone still has the same sort of piece of the pie, right? So you can split a pie 8 pieces. You can split it into 100 pieces. You can split it into a billion pieces. So I'm not saying there's not inequality. That's not what I'm talking about. But my point is that they could keep printing for a very, very long time, and the world will not collapse. I don't know when it does collapse, but me and you will be dead. That's my only point. Okay.
Well, listen, to that he has a point, because I mean it's just sort of a function of fiat currency, and as they continue to print more, they're actually devaluing the debt. Like
yes, and they can afford to pay it off. This is the way fiat money works. There is no other way that it works. This is the system that is set up on purpose. Okay. This is not an accident. So us talking about removing money from the system, no, that is not how the system works.
Yeah, but I mean,
Sorry, I was muted.
And
okay,
that's why
cool.
Bitcoin, hold on, but that's why Bitcoin and real estate, and we buy these other things, because they can either keep up or beat inflation. This is why we beat it. But the inflation is never going away. It is part of the system. Accept it. Move on. Invest in assets. Done.
I didn't want to go there with the Bitcoin thing, but that's exactly what Bitcoin.
I think you guys are right though. If we could print 100 trillion, I mean, like Bitcoin's going to the moon, dude. Like this is
it is.
like,
well, Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin will be worth say $100 million, but $100 million might
Won't
only
mean nothing,
have the spending
yeah.
power of whatever. So I think in the future we'll move to this idea that like right now our fiat currency is the store of value, and it's also what we use for commerce. But I do think that there'll be a distinction between that.
A simple thought experiment. Carlos, 1950, whatever, a house was bought for $2,000, right? Whatever it was bought, $5,000. Now it's like $1 million.
Yeah.
But once again, doesn't matter. 1950 money, $2,000 is a lot. It's hard to buy a house. 2024 money, $1 million is a lot.
So if you're saying inflation doesn't matter, why is the Fed obsessed with getting inflation down to 2%?
Well, no, you have to keep it under a certain. There is a window. You can't have runaway inflation, because then we just get these banana republic nonsense that's going on.
Yeah,
we need to keep
Republic, Argentina. Germany,
we need to keep it in a certain level, and that level is probably
Yeah.
not 2%. It's probably closer to, as all Bitcoin people believe, it's probably 5 to 10%. That's what I think is going on for like general inflation. It's probably 5% plus. Absolutely. But even if Chris, even if you keep it at 2%, whatever you want to believe, that's not the point. I don't want to get derailed here. Even if it's 2%, my point is there's a window that's the Fed has to keep it in 2-3%, whatever it is. As long as it stays there, everything will work out fine. If it goes to 10% and it stays there for too many years, that's when we're fucked. Absolutely.
Five, I think, is too much. I mean, if you think about the rate at compounding at 5%, you'll no, that doesn't work. 2.5 is what I hear. Between 2 and 2.5 is the target.
Fine.
That's
Even
why
if it's that, like I said, I want to get derailed with the numbers, but as long as there's a range and we all agree that this is the good range to stay in, whether it's 2.5 or 3, whatever, there is no problem with inflation. Absolutely none.
Let me ask you this question. So the CPI was hot today. Markets injected it. I mean, S&P was down 2%. I don't know if that stops this rally, though. NVIDIA turned to green on the day after it was down almost 2%. Like, do we think inflation is enough to stop it?
Once again, what does inflation have to do with NVIDIA selling GPUs? Apparently nothing for Microsoft. They don't give a shit. They'll still buy them. So I think that those services, once again, are not tied the way you're saying. So once again,
but for some businesses that need to borrow money as capex, like that does affect them because the rate that's affecting how much they're able to buy.
The people buying NVIDIA GPUs are not affected by the same.
Big tech is not affected by them either. I mean, Microsoft doesn't have debt.
Well, they have. I mean, these are the companies with the largest free cash flow in the world. So I mean, they're writing checks. There's nothing to them.
So this is where we're going to take a little bit of a detour, in that this presents a big vulnerability for Microsoft if they don't do it right. And this is the same thing that happened to Meta. This is the same thing that happened to, when you have a good time, people tend to overspend on CapEx and all this other stuff. So right now, everyone's like, yeah, Microsoft's doing really good, you know, giving them a 40 PE, and they're just going out there and spending monies like crazy on GPUs. Why? Because everyone believes there's an AI future. But what if the AI future doesn't materialize nearly as much as people are projecting? Then what happens? You know, that happened with Mark Zuckerberg over at Meta, where they were spending like crazy on the metaverse. Everyone thought the metaverse was going to be a big deal. That's why people were willing to pay $380 something in 2021. And then they figured out, wait a second, maybe this isn't going to monetize as much as we wanted to monetize. Meta took a giant dump. So I think the same thing could possibly happen in the future when it comes to not just Microsoft, but NVIDIA and all the other people in the cloud. Like right now, what I'm seeing is I believe that there is an AI future. I'm not denying that. What I am in the process of thinking that's happening is that the amount of spending that's happening is being brought forward in order to stay competitive. And they're going absolutely bonkers. Because NVIDIA has this monopoly on AI GPU chips, they're able to command prices like there is no tomorrow. Right now, it costs NVIDIA about $700 from TSMC to get those GPUs, right? All in cost, I think, is like $700. They charge almost $40,000-$50,000 for those AI GPUs. Now, Microsoft has to figure out a way to make money on that. Are they doing it right now to a degree? Yes, I think they are. But there is a vulnerability that I'm not sure a lot of people are talking about, but I'll bring it up. And this is something that Brad Gertzner and Bill Gurley brought up in their new podcast. A lot
that was a good
of
listen, by the way. That's a good one.
A lot of the AI spend is happening with non-cash expense. And the way that they're doing it is saying, oh, you know what? We'll just provide equity credits, like compute credits to the startups, right, that are in the space. So if you look at OpenAI, why is OpenAI valued what it is? Is it because they have a crap ton of total sales? Or is it because Microsoft said, hey, here's $2 billion worth of Azure credits for this percentage of your company, right? And that's what really drove up the value. I mean, the value of OpenAI is not measured right now by the market. It's measured by what the VCs in the background are saying it's valued at. And it's the same thing that happened in 2021, where people in the VC realm were willing to pay a crap ton of money for something that wasn't necessarily generating the tangible value that's out there. So a good example that they gave was something like Klarna, right? How many VCs were lining to throw billions behind Klarna? And then when it came to the market, it got repriced much, much lower. Same thing happened with so many other companies, right?
Klarna was valued at 50 billion, dude. It went down to like 7 billion or something.
Yeah. Instacart.
I just want to point out that's the way it works for every single company that then goes IPO.
Yeah,
they usually get a haircut immediately. And then and we've been in a couple of these. Uber got a haircut, Lyft got a haircut, Coinbase got a massive haircut. Everyone gets a haircut.
I don't think
it's
so.
overvalued in the private markets, and then it gets priced a little bit more accurately in the public markets.
I disagree with that. I disagree. I think what we saw in 2021 is the outlier. Huh?
What companies have
ARM?
Split?
ARM.
ARM. I'm not going to talk about ARM because that one, once again, is an AI outlier. If you go back back, I'm talking about like 2000, like after the tech bubble, when a lot of companies came out, they were priced pretty fairly, right? If you think about it, it's a lot of these newer companies that IPO during the crazy 2021 era. Those were the ones where the VCs had paid a crap ton of money. And when they went public, the public carried them even higher, right? And then eventually the market corrected. So if you look at Palantir, Palantir at one point was $35, right? Then it came all the way down to $6. And now it's back to its, 25, and now it might pull back into 18, like I'm saying, but who knows? But the point is that I think what the VCs are putting in doesn't necessarily reflect what the output is going to be by the market. But I think that's a more newer phenomenon than something that was the case 10 years ago. Because when companies like CrowdStrike, they IPO'd a long time ago, they weren't valued at the crazy valuation that they got in 2021, right? It's just 2021 vintage IPOs were the ones that came out really overvalued.
Well, then that's the market correcting them. That's the market correcting an improper valuation. But to your point, if it IPOs at a good valuation, then the market won't reprice it. So it's basically like you said, it's an overextension in the private market that they valued it too high.
Well, the VCs have fucked us, basically, honestly. Back in the day when Google was like $2 billion, it went public or whatever it was. So unfortunate didn't buy it. But that was a time when you can get those high quality companies for, you knew they were high quality. People were using Google in 2000. Okay. It wasn't like, oh, we're not using it. Everyone at schools was using it. I remember it. So now, not anymore. Like Uber went public. It was $100 billion, right? It was something crazy. So these companies are waiting way too long. I wish there was rules set up.
Rivian IPO at 90 billion or something.
Yeah.
Which one? Rivian? Yeah. I mean, like
IPO at $90 billion.
And Coinbase too. Like, honestly, these companies should not be allowed to wait that long to just basically extract all the value from retail investors. That's what it's doing. So,
okay. Let's have this discussion because this is going to be fun because KRIS has been getting into the Vision Pro. Carlos is going to get it soon. VITALY is kind of on Meta side. I think we have a delusional Zuckerberg who actually thinks he's better than the Vision Pro. Let's listen to him for a minute. So he sounds insane in this. Let's just listen to him.
I saw this.
So I finally tried Apple's Vision Pro. And, I have to say that before this, I expected that Quest would be the better value for most people since it's really good and it's like 7 times less expensive. But after using it, I don't just think that Quest is the better value. I think that Quest is the better product, period. And, the different companies made different design decisions for the headsets. They have different strengths. But overall, Quest is better for the vast majority of things that people use mixed reality for. Now, my friend Kenny is actually capturing this video on Quest's high-resolution mixed reality pass-through right now. We're just here in my living room, and you can see his browser windows and whatever else he's got running up here. So yeah, Quest 3 does high-quality pass-through with big screens, just like Vision Pro. But we also designed it to be great for a lot of other things, moving around, playing games, hanging out with friends and socializing, working out, and more. Quest, I think is just a lot more comfortable. We designed it to weigh 120 grams less, which makes a really big difference on your face. There's no wires that get in the way when you move around. Big deal. Our field of view is wider, and I found our screen to be brighter also. I also noticed that Apple's headset has this motion blur as you move around, which Quest is just a lot crisper. Now, Apple's screen does have a.
Okay, let me start on this first. I want to give my thoughts. I think this guy's insane, and the reason I think he's insane right now is because he realized Apple's Vision Pro has gone viral on every social media platform within 10 days of it launching, and he's had this Meta Quest 3 versions of it, and no one gives a shit. The other thing is, the reason I finally realized why the Vision Pro is going to beat Quest. You don't need a controller. Apple figured out the technology to do your eye tracking and hand tracking at the same time, so it feels natural. No one on an airplane wants to hold a joystick. Like, I think Zucks is lost. It's not going to be the consumer product he thinks it is. Even if it's cheaper, Apple will eventually get it to be cheaper. I don't know if spatial computing will win long term, but if someone's going to win, it's not going to be Zucks. I think it's going to be Apple.
Apple also has a much broader ecosystem to rely on. So that's the other thing where everything is probably going to work very seamlessly when it comes to Apple. That is a big edge on Microsoft, on Meta. I the way that I would frame this is like a repeat of iOS versus Android again, if you guys remember, where iOS came in, Android comes in, and then it's like the war goes on, and it was like, oh, 80% market share for Meta, and then slowly over time, most of the value that gets extracted is coming from Apple, and I think that's what's happening in the background too. So I don't know. I personally think Apple has hit a game winner. Not from the standpoint of total market dominance in the space, but from a value creation standpoint. I think this is something that a lot of people were kind of like a little bit iffy on when it came to Apple, which is, well, where is their next growth driver going to come from? To me, I'm looking at it, and I think the Vision Pro is going to be there. It may not monetize like crazy this year and even some degree next year, but I think within 3 to 4 years, this could be a big winner for them. And it just keeps adding to their top line growth, which, by the way, for Apple has been flatlining, so.
Let's give Vitaly your thoughts then, Carlos. What do you think about what Zucks is saying? He looks like he's desperate right now.
Well, there has been a lot of memes on the Vision Pro. I'm not going to deny that. And, but I don't see anything wrong with the CEO coming out trying to fight for his product. It might be cringe to you, but he's just trying to give the other point of view and explain why his product is better. So I don't actually think that's a problem.
Do you agree with his point of view? That's my question. Do you agree?
He was off on some things. Look, Vision Pro is obviously a better piece of tech. Okay. Yeah. But I think you keep forgetting that for most people, including me, okay, I'm not buying 3 Vision Pros. It doesn't make financial sense. I did buy 4 Quests. One I'm actually getting rid of, by the way, to have 3 because I have 2 kids. And so one thing you keep ignoring, which is still shocking to me, and somebody mentioned Hail the Great or someone, his kid would be on Quest 3 all day if you did not bother them. In fact, I've been dealing while I've been sick with my 2 kids who won't stop playing this goddamn game and just want to stay on the Quest for. I wasn't even capable of like putting parental controls because, and I'll give the downside of why Meta is not as good in terms of like software, but they won't stop playing Quest 2 and Quest 3. I have both of them. They won't stop playing this game. And it's so freaking annoying because all they want to do is stay 12 hours inside this game. And it's ridiculous. So there's a bullish case here. One, you're ignoring gaming is a big thing. Having controllers is a large thing. It's not a small thing, especially for like learning and doing different tasks, whatever. Not just meetings and not just notes and messages. All right. So let me give the bad thing. Now, the bad thing to set up that I did to do parental controls, Apple makes this kind of stuff like super simple to do and makes it much easier. Like, I don't know if you, Carlos, I don't know if you do anything with your kids yet, but yeah, I have iOS controls. So
guided access.
So yeah, you block some access, you block certain apps. It's a lot easier to fine tune the control per app. And Meta is just not there to have this fine level of control, which made it super annoying for me to actually set all of this up. So they have a lot of holes to fill and to break. But once again, I don't want to miss the bull case here. You're missing that gaming is not a small thing. It's not all going to be productivity, which Apple might win and take the majority of the share. I agree with Chris. That might happen in 4 or 5 years. Absolutely, as the new versions come out. But it's going to take a long time. And while that happens, Meta will also just build a bigger base and just be a legitimate competitor. Even Microsoft has acquiesced and not really developed their hardware and instead partnered with Meta to work with their VR platform. So my point is there's going to be multiple winners, definitely Meta, definitely Apple. Maybe Google's going to come into it. I don't know. But it's not one or the other. You guys keep thinking like it's one or the other. And even if Meta is the Android, that is a lot of value, okay? You're forgetting this is a company that was like serving you images and your friends. And now all of a sudden they're like the Android of like this new computing system. I'll take it. I'll take that win any day.
Okay, Carlos?
I think I've said this to you guys before. I was surprised at how much of a status symbol it became almost immediately. I personally would feel embarrassed walking around with that thing on my face, but that might just be that I'm fucking 47 years old, and a 18-year-old, a 20-year-old kid just doesn't have the problem. I think I tagged you in that, like TI, all the celebrities started coming out and putting and having videos. It was very Cybertruck-esque, and I did not expect it to be that. And then even seeing some of the reviews and people that have had it for a couple of days, the response is more positive than I thought. I mean, there's definitely people conceding that it's a first generation product. The killer app isn't out there yet, but the idea of like, is this going to be the next hit for Apple? I think overwhelmingly it's a yes. I'm more excited to see mine. I'm going to be really brutal on it, and I'll return it if I don't like it. But
some people have been returning it, right? They've been.
Farzad returned his.
Farzad is like, I love this, and I'm giving it back.
He's like, I love it. He's like, I love it. I want to wear it, and I'm looking for reasons to wear it. All the time, but that's like bad. And ultimately, he felt for the price as a first gen, he didn't see like the killer app for him. But I'm seeing other people saying the opposite. So I'm looking to see how I feel. What I do think is this. I mean, when Apple really tries to win in some category, they always do. There's just no product category except for social. The one thing that they didn't get right was social. They could not create a social media app, Ping. That failed. And I don't know that Meta can create a successful product. They've tried before and they've never been able to get a
the joysticks themselves, like having to hold a controller already.
Dude, but you still need a keyboard if you're going to use the Vision Pro, right? So
I know, but in general, Apple spent years trying to figure out your hand.
That's not the deal breaker for me. The thing for me is Meta priced their product at the game console level. It's not going to be seen as a game. It's seen as a game console. Apple priced theirs as a computer. And so I think this is going to cause either two things. Meta will raise their prices because they need to turn a profit on these things. Even though they're printing money on the other side, they can lose money on this forever. But I don't think that's what Zuck wants.
I think as soon as they're at price parity, just to say, Meta will not be raising prices there. As soon as they're at price parity, they will try to go full force into the ad network on their system, and that's how they will monetize.
That begs the question: will people spend time in this virtual world looking?
Once again, listen. I know you don't have any kids yet. My kids would spend 24/7.
But here's
the goddamn metaverse right now.
But your kids don't have any spending power. You do, not your kids.
And they've made me spend hundreds of dollars on shiny rocks. Do you even know what that is? I know what shiny rocks are. Do you know what shiny rocks are?
Here's the thing.
You mean like crystal meth? I know shiny rocks.
Here's the thing. Okay, there's that same experience would happen on any VR device that had that game. In the same way that I will not give Vision Pro credit for something that is inherent to just being in VR. I'm not going to give Meta credit for things that is also just for being in VR. Your kids like the experience of being in VR. If that same game was out on a Vision Pro, same controllers, I don't think kids would be platform agnostic. They don't care about PlayStation or Xbox. They care about the specific games. Is the idea. So in the same way that a lot of people that are experiencing these Vision Pros for the first time, it's their first time in VR. Guess what? If they put on a Meta Quest, they'd feel the same thing. So you can't say that is the Vision Pro's dominance over the Meta Quest. That's not what it is. What it comes down to is people that already understand the experience in VR enough to be able to differentiate between what each one of these is doing well. Because, of course, if you put on VR for the first time, it could be anything. You're going to be overwhelmed, blown away. HTC Vive or the HoloLens, right? It's going to be the same experience. So this idea that like, oh, my kids are in VR all day. Okay, wait till the first time your kids go and play the similar game or another game that's a Vision Pro exclusive and see how they feel. Because right now they're enjoying being in VR.
So you're forgetting this first party thing is important too. And Apple does it really well. The way they lock you into their system. Meta is buying game studios, doing first party things. So it's all part of the ecosystem. So it's not just like, oh, this game is everywhere. It's not like that. And it's changing rapidly as Meta gets.
They'll have their
first party titles part of their thing.
The thing is, it never really occurred to me that Apple's play for this thing dominating was in enterprise. And I've really started to see the benefits of how people can use these in business to make their companies more efficient. One example that I saw on the All In podcast was Freeberg was talking about how he has some deals with farmers, and he was out there the day the Vision Pro launched, and he was like, "Oh my God!" Like, because right now when they're on the field and they're trying to calculate something with their strawberries, they have like all these machines that they need. One of them to scan, one of them to weigh. Then they have an iPad that they use to input data. And his whole thing was one Vision Pro would replace all of these devices for my workers, and it would give me real time. It would be able to feed the data back to me real time, and the workers could listen to music while they're working. He's like, this is going to change the way some business allocate capital, because this would make more sense to instead of buying all of the different products. So it was this idea that okay, enterprise is actually going to be a thing, but Meta's been around for a while and could have captured that market. It just never took off. And I think fundamentally they priced it at a game console, and it's not seen as like an enterprise class thing in the same way that iPhones were not seen as enterprise class when they first came out. So my guess is that Meta will actually raise prices or create a higher tier version of the Quest that will compete more one-on-one with some of the features from the Vision Pro, and they'll call it the Meta Quest Pro or whatever they call it, and they'll either have a higher level tier for that, or they'll just start to raise prices. And if they did that, and the Vision Pro comes down, now you're talking about headsets that are from different companies at about $1,200 each, when they're around $1,000-$1,200.
There is already a Quest. By the way, there is a Quest Pro, so there is a higher end model.
But is that it's not on par with the specs of the Vision?
No,
there
no,
is
no.
one,
It's like $1,200 or something, or $1,000.
there is one thing that a lot of people are missing out when it comes to Apple. When it comes to Apple, and that's actually Apple's custom silicon, and what that means for basically, I would say, AI going forward. And I think today with the NVIDIA thing, that kind of just highlighted what I was originally thinking was going to happen, which is an AI in your pocket. And I think Apple is going to be utilizing that in their next generation of iPhones, and that might be a giant upgrade cycle for Apple. I'll talk about it more on Cash Flow Chronicles, so I'll see you guys in that. Have a good one.
All right.
How come he saves all the good stuff for Cash Flow Chronicles?
Bye, Chris.
You wouldn't let me talk. I would have said it 10 minutes ago, but you're gonna have to join me in Cash Flow to understand.
Let's do Robinhood for a couple minutes, and then we'll see you, Chris. We'll see you tomorrow.
But I'm gonna miss Cash Flow Chronicles.
You're gonna miss Cash Flow Chronicles. This bad boy's up 10%. I don't know if it's gonna hold because this economy is interesting. But Vitaly, you and me have Robinhood.
Yeah,
right?
we do. Yeah.
I
bought a couple of turds with you.
It's not turds. It's a good company.
Okay. Robinhood in Robinhood. Actually, I bought.
Oh, you have some, Carlos? Okay.
Yeah. I got some.
Okay, so the TLDR, they added 4.6 billion last quarter in deposits, 140,000 gold members, or 120,000, whatever it was, and they're profitable. Somehow they got a profit.
Oh, they made good interest on their short-term holdings.
Correct. And they're guiding for close to 8 billion in deposits in Q1 alone, which is double like the past year's deposits every quarter. They already had 60,000 gold memberships last month, or this month in January. And
8 billion in deposits. How much is there? How much cash do they have on hand that's theirs?
Well, so they have 5.3 billion in cash on the balance sheet. They have 102 billion assets under custody. They did 4.6 billion deposits last quarter, and the CFO said in January alone they did 4 billion. So what they did in 90 days, they did in 30 days. Which, if that continues, they might get to 12 billion in Q1.
With crypto, it's possible they have a good year.
Crypto yet? Are you thinking
crypto's exploding? I mean, shit, dude. This might be the runner this year.
Rising tide that is lifting all financial boats, dude.
But the thing is that's interesting. I don't know if you noticed. You could have bought Bitcoin directly when it tanked instead of Robinhood and done much better.
Correct.
Than having a proxy.
Now with his options, he'll crush on the options.
No, I'm saying at this point, the proxy was not working at this point.
Oh,
the miners were working, so the miners actually did way better than Bitcoin. But Robinhood did not do better than Bitcoin.
But we don't know what. I think this will be the first halving where Robinhood you were able to buy and sell crypto on Robinhood. So we don't know what the effect of the halving and the bull run is.
It's gonna. I think Robinhood will do well. I'm just still
do really well.
Once again, from the bottom to the top, we'll see what happens. Whether Robinhood outperforms. Obviously, calls are different than just.
Well, let's do the math. Robinhood's at 13. It bottomed at 750. So 13.
That's a nice double there.
7.5 divided by 7.5. That's 73%. And Bitcoin, if you got at the bottom in 2022, then you've doubled. But 73%. Now, timing at the bottom is hard.
Well, no, Bitcoin is 15,000, so it went to 30, 45. You're a 2.5x.
2.5x. So about 250% versus 73. And then CleanSpark, dude, that thing was at 650 last week.
No, that thing was $1. Well, I mean, it was $1 like a year ago. So
yeah, that's
the miners. Yeah. I wish I paid attention to miners earlier, but thank goodness I'm in CleanSpark and also in Bitfarms. I'm in those two.
Okay. You're in Bitfarms too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's the question. I don't know if it's going to hold. I mean, Jesse was doing some TA with me on my channel during the stream, and we got to get over 14 if we really want to capture this momentum. But I don't know tomorrow, dude. The CPI is hot. IWM's falling. Small caps. I don't know if we maintain this, but the business is doing well. And I think we're going to get a ton of price target upgrades, and eventually the stock will make sense, hopefully this year. But I don't know.
I think I showed you a chart, right? I showed you the chart, or I posted it. Yes, it has to clear 14 and stay above it. If it doesn't do that, we're going down. Who knows where, but we're going down.
Yeah.
I think
It's gonna be bloody.
These technicals mean a lot more with the smaller companies, just because they're much riskier for the bigger money, so they want some sort of security. And if you do look at that 14, it's what 3, 4, 5 times that it's tried to pass that and hasn't been able to pass it.
Yeah, 1350 has always fucked it every time.
All right, so if you get above 14 and you can hold that for a week, get a weekly close that's above 14, then it's like, okay, all's forgiven. We start from here.
I don't know if that's going to happen because it looks like things are turning around right now. So
I mean, there's a little bit of pullback coming, you think?
I feel it's coming. We've been pretty hot. So I think the end of the year, I think we're fine, by the way.
Yeah,
I still
I
believe
agree.
we're in a bull market.
I agree.
But it doesn't mean we don't have something that flushes out some people, especially from these miners and Hood. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hit whatever 13, 14, if that actually touches it and then just collapses. Wouldn't be shocked. In fact, I'm thinking of getting rid of my calls and just going deeper balls into a clean spark as it collapses too.
Wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean,
instead of, because my whole thing about Hood was it was a proxy play for Bitcoin. That's my only reason I'm in Hood. It's not because I believe in the business. So if that's the case, I might as well just buy the miners who seem to run way faster.
Yeah, and CleanSpark had a phenomenal earnings. I don't know if you got to, but their management is exceptional, stellar. I mean, these guys know what the hell they're doing when it comes to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm not buying it now, but if it does collapse, then I will buy again.
All right. All right, good stuff. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. I think Coinbase is tomorrow, and we'll talk about them. We'll also talk about Shopify tomorrow. We didn't get to talk about them today, and keep going from there. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a good one. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.